Make sure to download the Module 6 zip file and unzip it. Take a moment to look at that checkerboard file that you've created and make sure that all this is correctly done. We'll be using this checkerboard in a future assignment, and you want to make sure that everything's up to date if possible. So just double check on that. One thing to be aware of is that you can share your own models into the 3D warehouse. So we can download, but we can also upload. And these are the files to use the buttons to use to upload the files. Now just make sure that they're all front facing, the surfaces. Make sure you delete things that are unnecessary. For example, the person. You don't need to have a person in a 3D warehouse. It comes with SketchUp automatically. You just want your model to be ready to go. And also that you've purged all the pieces and stuff you've not used. One other thing to consider is if you've used other models to create your models. For example, some places out there have entire room models. So unless you've made every single piece, you need to kind of state in there when you upload the definitions, information, state in there the stuff that you modeled versus the stuff that was used from somebody else. And that will take care of any plagiarism problems as well. Also remember that if you upload to the 3D warehouse, you're basically giving people permission to download into their own projects. And if you have a problem with that, then use a different site to upload your models. And we're going to return back to that small cabin and do a little bit more with the paint bucket tool. If you cannot find the file we worked on in a previous session, if you go to your SketchUp folder that you've downloaded the lectures, and inside the Module 6, there is a paint folder, and in there is a small cabin painted file. So you can go ahead and open that one or the one that you worked on from last time. So with the cabin open, let's go ahead and click on the kitchen tab at the top. And we can see the countertops here. And let's say we want to add some material to that countertop. Whenever deciding on materials to add for a project, you should always consider materials that actually exist in real life. One source to find it is in the manufacturer's website. Another one is also in the 3D warehouse. Let's say we're going to have a Formica countertop. I'm going to call it Formica Solid Surfacing. Let's say we want solid surfacing countertops for Formica. We're looking for that. Now, you could type different manufacturers, suppliers, and so forth, but we're going to use this one for this lecture. And you can see we've got a few here. If we just had typed Formica, we'd have a lot more options. But let's say we're going to choose one of these. Let's do this one right here, Formica Solid Surfacing, 1 of 3. Let's go ahead and just download it. And it says directly into your model. Let's say yes. I'm going to scroll out, and I will click like out here somewhere. If you're having difficulty finding that Formica Solid Surfacing, the paint folder in our session folder has the SketchUp file, and you can use File, Import to bring that into this model. And so these are actual images of Formica to scale. And so we're going to use that on our countertops. You can even go to our materials tray, and over here we can actually save the textures that we brought in. You can even save some of these textures into its own separate collection, similar to the different folders you find in the materials palette, and the brick, the colors, and so forth. You could have your own collection of, let's say, Formica products. We don't need to save these textures for this project. If you scroll up on these, so we can use the eyedropper tool and click on the surfaces, and you can see the model number and the name of that particular Formica product. And that's one great advantage of using existing materials. You know that that color exists or that pattern exists somewhere. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to paint it this blue. Let's say we want this particular color on our countertops. So scroll out, and if I click on here, look what happens. Everything gets covered. And that's not what we're talking about. We're not using that Formica on all the surfaces, just on the countertop. Let's undo that a second. So what's going on? Well, we're painting the whole component, right? And we want to just paint the countertop. So hit the space bar, double click, and clicking once is not going to be enough. You have to double click again because, see, this is not, I don't want to paint the component grouping. I want individual components. Now, we'll now go ahead and use the paint bucket tool. And I can hold down the control key and paint all connected surfaces that are the same quickly, or each one individually. And that's the right color. So let's assume we want to show a client maybe more than one option. Well, one thing we could do is select the component, M for move, tap the control key, and make a copy out here. What we can do is go into the textures here, B for paint bucket tool, Alt, hold down the Alt key. Let's say we want this particular one, click, let go of the Alt key. And now we can go ahead and go into the component and B for paint bucket tool, hold down the control key, and you can change that all out. So now we have the client two different colors to see. Oh, wait a minute, that color changed. Why did that color change? Well, remember what happens to one component happens to all of them. These are the same component. I just copied it over here. In memory, the computer keeps them the same. So let's undo this a second. Go back to where it was. What we need to do now is select this component, and when you go to Entity Info over here, you can see that there are two in the model. If you right-click over this and select Make Unique, now notice the difference. There's only one in the model, and they gave it a new name. This was called Kitchen, now it's called Kitchen 1, and that's okay. So now we have two components. I can come back into here, and B for paint bucket tool, I can go ahead and change those out. And now when I zoom out, I have two different countertops I can discuss with the client. So let's go back to the chimney wall. Click on chimney here. And remember we had to fix up the stonework up here. Let's say the client wants a different option for the surround of the firebox here. What we can do is use the eyedropper in the paint bucket tool and click on the surface, and it tells us what it is. And then we can go to Edit, like we did before with the doors, right? Go to Edit and select the general color of the material, which is this one right here. Click. And click on the tile surface. And again, something happened here that we weren't expecting. We're getting this weird kind of rainbow pattern, which is kind of cool looking, but that's not what the client wanted. And what's happening is that there's such a variety of different colors in the material that when they got shifted over, the colors also got shifted over. If this ever happens, go down here in your materials and scroll down, colorize. And now that's more what I expected. It's taking basically lights and darks and just making something lighter or darker based off that general tone. That's more what the client expected to see on that wall. Now, if we wanted to finish this and paint the wall, there's many different ways of doing it. One of them is to go and get a paint chip from the store and then put it up against the computer monitor and adjust the color. So you'd have the color up on the screen, and you'd have it on your screen while you're working on the monitor, and you would go to the solid color options and pick a color that's somewhat close to what you're shooting for. Doesn't have to be exact. And paint. Oh, okay, so I'm not in the component. So I need to kind of get out of that. Undo. Spacebar, double click. Now I'm in the component. The world's greened out. Let's try this again. Paint. And then what you would do is you would adjust the color of the paint to match the color of the paint chip. So if you go to Edit, and I like using the HLS setting for that, and I would just kind of eyeball a little bit, you know, how dark, how light, how gray something is. I would start with a hue, then I'd work on the saturation, and finally determine how light or dark it is, the lightness. And it is going to be a judgment call. If it gets too hard to do it by click and drag, you can click these arrows by the numbers to maybe have a little bit better fine tuning. Now, when you orbit in SketchUp though, the color will slightly change. It's the way the SketchUp program is trying to show three-dimensionality of the model. A lot of times I say try and make the color match when you're like at 45 degrees, so it's not quite straight on but not quite sideways. That will affect what it looks like on the screen, but still would be a very good example. Another thing to be aware of is shadows, and that will happen in real life. You'll have light and darks in a real room, right? So here's light and shadow with the shadow setting turned on. You can see that this is the color. This is the same color on both of these. So typically when I try to match a color, I do not have any shadows turned on, and I try and keep it at 45 degrees. Another way of doing it is to go online to a paint store company and go find what kind of colors are out there from the store. So for example, in this Benjamin Moore link, to see the major color families and just kind of go through it, see what's the color that matches, again, your design intent, right? The design intent comes first. So let's restore down, and we'll go to the site here, the Benjamin Moore site, put them side by side here, and we're going to go find the color. And we finally got to here. Glen Ridge Gold is the color that we're shooting for that wall. And so I want to match that color somehow. And so there's a program in the Module 6 folder. Let me move this out of the way a little bit so we can see this a little better. There's a program here called Color Cop. It's inside the Module 6 folder. Double click on that. It's a freeware program. And if you click on it, it'll come up looking something like this. And it'll stay on top of the whole screen and so forth. What it does is it gives you the RGB settings and also the hexadecimal settings of a color. So if I click this and I drag over to this Glen Ridge Gold, I can see a little window for the color I've selected. In this case, it's a whole big swatch of it, but sometimes you're trying to get a pixel color of the screen, so it can change. If you put it here, you can see you'll have different colors depending on where you're at. But Glen Ridge Gold is what we want. So how do I get that over here? Well, let's put this out of the way a little bit. So I'm going to go to the materials folder. I'm still in it in SketchUp. So I'm going to go here, and I'll select here and go to solid colors. And I'll start with one that's kind of the same-ish, and paint that surface. Let's say this is going to be an accent wall, so I don't want all of it. Doing this, well, look what happens. If I paint this surface, everything gets painted, right? It's the same thing. I got to get in the component. So I'm going to double click to get in the component. Now I can select this and paint just this surface alone. And then click on the edit button. And so I just type in these numbers. So this I'll type in 226, and this one 173, and this one 74. And now you can see that, the color sort of matches, right? I mean, they're all kind of the same color. And as a matter of fact, I would change this now to call it 301 Glen Ridge Gold. That's the color. And that will be very helpful too, because you will then have the model number. It's a Benjamin Moore color. It's existent color. There doesn't have to be a special color matching or anything like that. And the model is accurate. And so for your assignment is to go to the Benjamin Moore site, find a color, and use Color Cop to get the RGB, and then paint this wall that color. So you'll have to arrange the windows. So you've got the Color Cop here with the RGB. You have the edit with the RGB. You've got this over here with the color you selected. You hit the print screen key on your keyboard, and that'll take a screenshot. Then search in the menu bar for Paint, the Paint program, and then edit paste. Then do File, Save As, JPEG. And then put it in your folder that you have your homework. And then save it as cabin color and then your initials. So that's your assignment. You want to make sure you get a color, your own unique color, whatever one you prefer, and put it on this wall and make sure the name has been changed and take a screenshot. Benjamin Moore has an app. Other paint companies also have an app that you can put on your phone, and you can actually take pictures of existing colors and find out what matches with the Benjamin Moore color. All right, let's say that you actually have an actual material. Well, you can take a photograph of that material and then crop it and use that as a texture. Again, having an actual piece is really helpful. So this is an example of a tile piece, and we're going to say that that's what they want to consider as well. Now, this particular texture was made seamless, and we'll learn more about that in another class. Zoom up a little bit on the area here, go to File, Import, go find that file. Now, there's different ways to bring it in. One way as an image file. If you do it that way, it's almost like having a poster on the wall. So we're not going to do that. We want it to become a texture that fills up the whole thing. The other one is texture, and that's what we're going to want. Finally, a new match photo. That's when you try and match a 3D photo and make a model of it. We're not going to be touching much base on that, although I'll give you in a later session links that you can look more into this. But what we're going to do is a texture. And make sure that this is all supported types. You should be able to see it over here when you click on it. It should be listed here in this list. Click on import. And then I'll just click down here, click, and we're going to like go up a little bit, whatever size scale. If you notice, the larger, it's a lot larger scale, or smaller, a lot tighter scale. So it depends on what I need it to be, what matches the existing. And I just click here and notice that filled it all up. Click Zoom Extents to zoom out. At this point, we've done quite a bit of stuff here. We've brought in materials, and we're not using all of them. So I can delete this out of this grouping, right? I don't need all that here. If there's any other components that we brought in or whatever, I think this is what it did. But we did have some color change here. We brought this color. So let's go ahead now and make this file smaller, right? Go to Window, Model Info, Statistics, and just take a look here a second. If I hit this home button right here, this is all the materials are in the model, even the ones we deleted. This includes also styles, components, anything we bring in and delete from our model is still in memory. It just adds and adds and adds. And we'll click Purge Unused. And then look, there are less images here, only the ones that are being used. It makes the file size smaller. Also, when we go to File, Save, right, we'll have this dialog box too that comes up that says to save files or not. Click on the front right tag and you can go ahead and exit out of here. So an assignment to continue using the Paint Bucket tool is to texture these pillows. What's interesting about the pillows is they have curved surfaces, and so how do you texture curved surfaces so it works properly? And then you're going to place these pillows, so it's a little bit of movement going on here, onto a sofa. You can look at this video link for information. It goes step by step on how to do this project. The files are located in the SketchUp folder, Module 6, under the pillow. So in here we have both the pillows and the sofa, as well as the tutorial PDF file. Inside the folder, there's a Designing with Pillows PDF. There's a Fabric Links doc file, and in it shows you the name of the fabric and information on it, the links to the website that has them. So again, it's very important that you have not only the fabrics, but also the correct scale, and the video, as well as the tutorial PDF file, kind of walks you through that. The pillows are pretty much white to start with, and then these are the fabrics we'll be using, and this is the sofa. So all the pillows you can do here, you can bring into the sofa and arrange them like the image on the assignment. There's also PDFs about standard pillow sizes and ideas about decorating with pillows. Let's continue working on the hotel to kind of bring it up to speed and have all the materials be complete here. And one thing we notice when we bring in things from the 3D warehouse, they may or may not match our design intent. This door, for example, isn't quite the right material. It came in with a material, but it's not the right material for a scheme. You can tell that it doesn't match. What we can do is replace this material, just like we did the countertops. I'm going to go ahead and go to Paint Bucket Tool, so B for Paint Bucket Tool. And what I want to do is I want to select, let's say, this material. This is the color we're looking for all our wood products. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, click here, and then go to the door, use the space bar, click to the door, click inside it. So now I'm inside the door component. B for Paint Bucket. This is still in memory, Wood Grain Light 1. And I'm going to go ahead and click. I'll hold down the Control key on the keyboard, click, and now everything's been replaced by that material. Now that door matches the other door and the design intent of this room. So I can use an existing material and use the Paint Bucket tool to paint it somewhere else. We sometimes might have to go into two parts. So for example, this bed, I'm going to want to have the sheets be this material, but I want the frame to be the wood tone. So I just can't use the paint bucket tool and grab this and then just click here. It's just not going to work. You can see it's not even taking it. I have to actually go into the component and actually then go into every single bit of it and then go ahead and paint it to match. So continue to color and recolor the hotel model to match the proposed design. You can see the example down there, what it's supposed to look like. And this is one of these assignments that cannot be turned in later. Get it in by the end date for sure, that last available date, because we will be using it in the next session up to this point complete. The pillows and so forth, and you can just see that. Again, the chase color has the materials for the bed. The wall is here. So here's the wall colors. You can just use paint bucket tool, hold down the Alt key, click it up, and then that's the material. It's the wall color material we can put everywhere. Match existing color scheme, going through it. Again, we've got, if necessary, we got the floor here that should match, the walls match. Again, don't worry about the small table. Don't worry about the window. We'll take care of that. You do want to make sure you get inside the component. One thing we haven't looked at is how those component works. Let's say I want to work on one part of this model. If I double click here, you can see like this wall's in the way. One thing you can do is go to View, Component Edit, and I can hide rest of the model. You click on that, and only the component that's open will I need to worry about. Same thing here. Let's say it's the door is the one I'm doing. Double click there, now that. Now the rest of the model is still here. It's just hidden. So I can go into, let's say, this. Now notice this one stayed here. Why? It's the same component. So if I don't want to have this one also visible, I can do View, Component Edit, and hide similar components. So again, make sure you toggle back and forth between the two of them. Depends on what you want to do. Sometimes you need to see the rest of the component, sometimes you don't. So we're looking to fully color the interior of the hotel. Another assignment. It's time now to take a look at those sketches you've had and the photographs you have of your bedroom. And it's time to build a model. And I would use the same techniques we did on the hotel. So go back to the last 2 or 3 modules and see the steps used. One thing to be aware of is that the bedroom doors need to have frames on them. Some from the 3D warehouse have frames, but some of them don't have frames. And so you just double check and see, and some of them have the wrong kinds of frames. So again, you want to make sure when you bring it in, like this one here had no frames. It was just a door. And the lecture has this link to this video that you can follow along. If you go to your SketchUp folder, there's adding door frames to casing and doors tutorial. You can use it to follow along with the video. One other thing I've given you is this dynamic windows and railing. And we've talked about dynamic windows in the last session. I just want to show you what you can do with that. Double click to open that up. When it opens up, it looks something like this. These are dynamic components. They're made up a certain way to kind of modify themselves based on some parameters you give it. So for example, the railing here, if you want to put that in your model and have maybe a longer spacing, select the end post, move, and move across, click, and then you select the railing portion, S for scale, click, and go to here, click, and it resized the balusters. Let's undo that a sec. Let's say you have a whole overall length to take, maybe 12 feet. So I would delete the end post and use the beginning post to start my array. Select one post, M for move, tap the control key, click, go across, let go of your mouse, type in 12 feet, press enter, and now those posts are 12 feet apart, but that's the long railing. So let's say there's going to be 3 of them, 3 posts in between. Type in 3, divide, press enter, and that's your array. So that's how you would do that. Select it, S for scale, click and click, and that's resize the baluster spacing. I can do M for move, tap the control key now, and I usually like to grab the top of the point of this post here and click and type in 2x, and there we go. Now we've got our railing. You want to have these posts no more than, let's say, 8 feet apart. Same thing for the windows, and I'd like you to use these windows for your project. So for these windows, you not only can use scale, but you also can use this. And it's up here in the dialog box, this component options dialog box. So if I click on this window, let's say, and S for scale, and click here, it just resizes the frame, right? And I would a lot of times use the move tool, click, put it here in the window opening, and then S for scale, and then same thing down there. Now these come in with some buttons, but if you click on the window and then click on this options bar, you can see here you can actually put the window widths and heights right there. The size of the frame, there's a couple of frame sizes. Some of them have narrow frames. So if it's a metal window, it might have a narrower frame if it's a different kind of window. The glass width, how thick the glass is. The mullions, these are mullions. So let's say there are no mullions. There you go. Click apply, and that's it. There are no mullions. Well, let's say there are mullions. Right. But there's also mullions in the lower frame. Well, lower mullions, we're going to toggle them on. And now we have them matching. So it just depends on what your windows are doing. Same thing can be done to this. And this again, also you can use the scale tool. So the window width and height, you can't type them in there, but you just scale this to the right size. In other words, make the hole first the correct size, and then put the window in it. And then you just scale it to fit. I find these very helpful, I think, for your models, and I've used these everywhere. This will work for a casement window and a fixed window, and this can work for a double hung or single hung window, which are standard types of windows. You can do file import to import this whole file in and just delete what you don't need. And these are all groups, so I can have one window one size and another window another size. So how do we start now? We've got information about the doors and the windows and all this, but how do we actually start this project? I always like to start with the information given in the lecture. So here's a lecture PDF, and it says we're going to model this using the sketches and the images. So we've got the pictures of our room. We've got some sketches we've made. And we also have this link here about doors and door frames and how to put them into your project. In addition, we've been given this, and this has been very helpful because these two windows are dynamic components that can help create different types of windows for a project. And I found windows and projects become problematic. So we've got all those pieces going for us. Then we have to take a look at the processes we've learned about. So how do we start on a blank slate? Back in an earlier module, we had the steps of the Kirkwood Hotel. And so we could look at how that was put together. So following through, we'd go make the floor plan. Probably floor plan's a rectangular shape, but we'll take a look at that. And then we'll do some guidelines for wall widths. In our sketching assignment, we were given certain sizes to look at and to look for when making wall widths. So if we have an interior wood stud wall with drywall on each side, it's going to be 4.5 inches. Other sizes are here listed, and some students round up, but I prefer to use the actual number wherever possible. So I use these offsets to get my wall widths, or I use the offset command. Of course, you clean it up as you go. Then we would push-pull the surfaces, get the right heights. And in this case, we did put the baseboard in. I made components, put the ceiling on, and so forth. So just following the steps that we've had in the past, and just looking at what they did and doing the same things. So putting it step by step together. I start the rectangle with the size of my floor plan. I would maybe either offset or use tape measure lines. So if your walls are similar sizes all the way around, I would just offset the size that it needs to be. P for push-pull. Select the surface, P for push-pull. Go up the height of your walls. And then I would go ahead and select the walls and underneath, and I would right-click, make a component. Call it walls, just like we did for the hotel. And now in this case, I'd go ahead and make a tag, call it walls, and I would then select the component, make sure it's a component, and go in the wall tag. Now, the component should be in a tag, but the stuff inside the component should be in the untagged tag. So if when you're inside the component, it should always be untagged, otherwise the component's the right one. At this point, I can make my walls not visible, and I have the floor again. Double click on the floor, right click, make component. Let's call it floor. Let's go ahead and make a tag called floor. And right click, entity info. Let's put that on the floor tag. I'm going to double click onto this. Again, the surface is untagged. P for push pull. I'm going to go down 12. We're going to be 12 inches going down in the floor and 12 inches going up in the ceiling. Now the floor and the walls are in place and components. I can look at them and I can see that my floor needs to be a little bit longer. So double click, P for push pull, click, 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 and click, click. Again, if you got a different shape space, then go and use that. I'm going to go and select everything. M for move. I'm going to put it in the origin. So there you go. I like putting the origin at the floor line and the corner of the space. I don't really need this person. This is about the correct size room, so we can just delete that. If I'm going to put a ceiling, I'll put the ceiling next. R for rectangle. Click, click, double click, right click, make component called ceiling. And here, plus, add a tag, ceiling. Put this in the ceiling tag. So now we've got this in the ceiling tag. Double click, P, move up 12. And the thicknesses I've chosen is only just to get some thickness to the material, because otherwise when we get into the rendering mode, it becomes a little trickier. All right, so I would stop making this thing visible. I would double click to go inside the wall component, T for tape measure, and I would locate the window, the right height and so forth, depending on the notes from my sketch. R for rectangle, and I would then make a rectangle, and P for push pull, and push pull it through. And so there you go, now I have my opening. Since I'm done with the guidelines, I go to edit, delete guides. And then I would bring in the component that was given to us of the windows. I go to File, Import, and we have this dynamic windows and railing. Click, Import. I just put it aside somewhere. Right click, Explode. And so I've got the two windows. If it's a double hung window or a slider window, so I can rotate 90 degrees in the green. It could be a slider window, and this could be a casement or a fixed window. So M for move, click, go over here, zoom up, click. This shows you that we'll use this scale tool and also this dynamic component tool to help make this more accurate to what's existing. S for scale, click to click, and then hover down here, click to click. So we're saying this is either a single hung or double hung window, but it's a single one. And then I go to this properties here, and because I've selected this, I can say if there are mullions there, and right now there will be, so I'm going to do on for the bottom mullions. Click apply, and now we've got mullions top and bottom. Otherwise, just say 0 or whatever number it needs to be. Now the problem is this window is not in the wall component. It's a separate component outside of it. When we import, sometimes that happens. So I'll select the window, edit, cut, double click to go to the wall component, edit, paste in place. So now when I make my walls not visible, it's gone. So we don't need any of these other things. We can delete that. We'll make an opening for the door, matching the size of the door we have in our space. And we'll go to the 3D warehouse to get the door. We've brought things in, we've added things, and we've added extra tags here, so we want to get rid of that. So we go to Window, model info, statistics, purge unused. In this case, the only ones that we will have to keep is probably that edge, because that's part of this window, or ceiling, floor, and walls, of course, would be the ones. We eventually add other things like furniture and such, but that's how you would start this. Again, looking back at what we've done in the past. So these are the things I'm looking for at this point of the project. Make components and tags. Make the ceiling and floors. Give them a 1 foot thickness for the ceiling and the floors. And then import dynamic windows from the session folder that I showed you. Use those. Import doors from the 3D warehouse. Try to match the same style as the existing. And we'll be adding to this model in the next few sessions, so you want to make sure you kind of work on it a little bit. And this project will be 3 points when it's done. More videos to watch from the learning videos, Square One learning videos. Again, they're very useful to know about these things. And so assignment recap at the end of the session. Again, work on the bedroom model and see below, we're doing all the stuff down here. Create a bedroom model from the sketch, use components from the session folder in the 3D warehouse, match existing doors and windows, make tags, put the things in correct tags, the floor and the ceiling. For the small cabin is that wall color that we talked about. And then complete the interior of the hotel with furniture east wall. And if this assignment really cannot be turned in late, you've got to get up to this point right now in this lecture, because we're moving on. We're going to be adding finally that window and that little table in the next session. So we'll make sure that this model is ready to go for that. Also, irregular surfaces, curved surfaces, how do you apply textures using the paint bucket tool? So you're going to put them on the pillow, but then the pillows go on the sofa, and the sofa is what's getting uploaded with the pillows on it. So I don't need to have all the different parts. I just need the sofa with the pillows ready to go. And don't forget to look at those SketchUp videos. Those are very good.